Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today I am here with another planning to pan video, and this is personally one that I'm very excited for because I'm going to talk you through my options for pan that palette next year. So I do have a pile of palettes next to me, and I'm going to talk you through every single one that I'm considering, my thoughts, all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's going to be an exciting video. Again, pan that palette is one of my favorite projects, so yeah, I'm excited to talk you through and hear what you guys think. I, of course, already have kind of like a favorite palette that I would work on, or favorite out of these options. But I do also want to hear from you guys and see what you guys think. And, you know, depending on what you guys say, maybe I will decide to go with that. Maybe I stick with what I'm like planning already. We're just going to have to see. But I'm going to jump into the different options. But before I do so, if you're new here, please consider subscribing. I would love to have you in the family. Let's jump into the video. So I know I already mentioned this in the kind of first planning to pan video, but I just want to mention it here as well because of course I'm going to give credit to who credit is due. Pan That Palette was created by Amber F a long time ago. I think she still does it. I see her videos every now and then. I don't personally watch her very much anymore, but she is the creator of Pan That Palette. And it's a genius concept. I do really love this type of video. I think it's just such a fun way to pan eyeshadows. So yeah, it was created by Amber F. This year, just to give you again the backstory, I'm panning the Soft Glam palette from Anastasia, which I actually have next to me, so I can show you what it looks like. If you haven't checked out my last update, you can go check that out first. But this is what it currently looks like right now. So I do have some Franken shadows in here, but I have finished up 1, 2, 3 shades, so it's currently also in a Franken, so 3 shades are done, and a lot of them are getting quite close. So yeah, that is kind of where I'm standing with this palette today, and this is the one that I'm panning this year. So I'm just going to jump into the options that I have and that I'm thinking about for next year for Pan That Palette. And the first one actually involves Soft Glam. So the first option that I have is to basically continue on my Pan That Palette from this year, because I have realized, come to terms, that I will not finish this whole palette this year, which is fine. I'm still hopeful that I can finish, you know, a couple of shades. I'm hoping that I can finish like this shade, this shade, this shade, this shade, maybe. And I would have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 left, which is mostly the deeper shades, but I can Franken those. But we'll see. Again, obviously, I don't know where I'm going to finish this year, but I think I'm going to have at least 5 shades left in here. So the first option that I have is to continue this palette, see how long it takes to absolutely completely finish it up, and hopefully that shouldn't take like the full 2 years, although it has a black in it, so it might still take a long time. But yeah, continue on this one, and then also having a companion palette, which for me would be a singles palette. So I haven't like personalized it yet. I right now just have some different miscellaneous singles in here that I'm panning or I have panned and stuff like that. So what I would do is I would make a BYOP like this, but I would probably fill it out with singles that I want to pan with my Soft Glam palette. And the singles that I would pick out, I will pick them out. If I do go with this option, I will pick them out with you guys in a video, but it's mainly going to be like duplicate shades that I have in my collection, of maybe singles that I don't like it very much anymore. And it probably would be a lot of shimmer shadows, just because the Soft Glam palette has mainly mattes. I'm definitely thinking I'm going to finish up both the shimmers that are left in here, which means that this palette would be only mattes. So I think that's kind of would work out really well. So that's going to be my first option for Pan That Palette. And again, I mentioned earlier that I have one that I'm leaning towards, and this is that option. I'm leaning towards this one. This is kind of like what I personally want to do, because then I can start using up some of my beautiful indie shadows. By the way, I'm so sorry if my dogs are making noise. She's eating her dinner, and I don't want to disturb her, so hopefully you're not too distracted by all of the little taps in and out of her crate and maybe some nibbling and stuff. Anyway, so hopefully that's fine. But this is the option that I want to do because I can get some use out of my single shadows, which would be amazing, and I can actually start using some of them up, and I will be able to roll in some shadows that are absolutely stunning and just very unique, very sparkly, and the kind of shadows that I want to reach for anyway. While still completely finishing this palette, because otherwise I, at the end of this year, kind of stands at a bit of a kind of crossroads if I want to declutter this palette, if I want to keep it in my collection, or what I want to do with it, because again, I don't think I'm going to be able to finish it fully. So that is option number one, is kind of like 2 palettes like this. And of course, again, I would try to complete as much as I could out of these 2. And with the rest, I'm just going to talk you through. These are all of the palettes that I would like at some point consider panning, at least for now. So all of these are contenders, although some of them I'm definitely leaning more towards than others. So let's go into the next 2, which are also Anastasia palettes. We have the Nomia palette, which is one that I considered last year as well as a panda palette. It looks like this. It is a beautiful, beautiful color story. I absolutely love this palette. I would be really, really happy with panning this palette. I think it would be quite versatile. It has a lot of shimmers, which means I think it would be easier to pan as well. So I think that has like a benefit to it. I also really love the rosy tones in here, and it also has some of those like everyday neutral tones. So I do think, honestly, this would be a great palette for me to pan because of all of those reasons. And I do think I'm more ready to pan this palette now than I was last year, when I think this one actually won the voting last year, but I decided to go with the Soft Glam palette just because I didn't quite feel ready to pan this one yet. But yeah, let me know what you think of this one. It might be repetitive panning in another Anastasia palette, but yeah, this is definitely one that I'm considering. Then another Anastasia palette is this one right here, which is the Amrisi palette. This one is a little bit bigger. It has what's that, 16 shades, right? Yeah, 16 shades, so 2 more than the standard Anastasia palette. It also has 2 pressed glitters in it. Again, this palette has a lot of shimmers, which would be easy to pan. And again, it has those kind of rosier tones, but also some more everyday shades. The only thing with this one that I'm a bit cautious about is that it has a lot of deep shades, which is not something that I'm reaching for too much at the moment. But it also has some of my like really favorite shades. I really, really love Barb. That is one of my favorites. I also feel like Anastasia is a beautiful shade. So is Cupcakes. So there's a lot of shades in here that I absolutely love. And I do think it still would be somewhat easy to finish. But yeah, it is a lot of shades. So, you know, it will still take quite a long time to get through. And since I haven't been able to get through the Soft Glam palette this year, I'm not sure if I will be able to get through the whole palette next year. Although, again, I think my focus will shift next year anyway, but yeah, that is the next palette. We're moving away from Anastasia and going into Colourpop next, because I have 2 Colourpop palettes that I'm also considering to pan. The first one is this one right here, which is also one that was a contender last year, and this is the Going Coconuts palette. This one is a really, really stunning, like everyday type of palette. It has some beautiful, more kind of cool tone shades, but I do think this one will be very versatile and very easy to incorporate into everyday. The only thing with this one is that it has a lot of mattes and Colourpop mattes as well, which are hard to get through. But it does have those 3 shimmers in the center, which I think would be very nice and, again, versatile into everyday looks. It has some lighter mattes, which, again, I think I would be able to get through quite easily. The hardest ones would probably be like these 3 right here, I think. But yeah, that is the next option. Another one that I would definitely consider quite heavily. It was one of the ones, like I said, that I considered last year too. So it's still been on my mind for the last year. And I think this one would be fun to pan. But again, I'm just a bit hesitant because it would also be like another very neutral color story similar to Soft Glam. Even though this one is definitely, like I said, more cool toned. And then the second Colourpop palette that I'm thinking about is this one right here, which is the Sweet Talk palette. I mean, I would consider panning this palette as a whole, as it is right now. But one of the reasons why I put this one in was because I thought about personalizing this palette and like taking some of the shades out, maybe the ones that I wanted to keep, and then making like a BYOP palette almost with my Colourpop singles to pan. Let me know which one of those 2 options you would prefer. I do think this one would be nice to pan as well, but it would also be kind of like very repetitive looks, I think, because a lot of these shades in here are quite similar. But it's also shades that I really do enjoy. So I think I would have a great time with this palette. But again, with Colourpop mattes, there's a lot of mattes in here. I'm just looking at all of them, and I think they would be quite hard to be able to get through all of them in a year. So it was also kind of be, I think, more of a progress type of palette rather than finishing it completely. But it's definitely one that I would enjoy panning, but I think it's not one of my top contenders from the list. But again, let me know your thoughts. A brand that I have never even like considered for panda palette before is one that is coming up next, and that is actually Natasha Denona. And I am considering panning this palette just because I feel like I would actually be able to get through it. And also, I feel like this one is a little bit repetitive in my collection, and it's not my favorite either. And that is actually one of her mini palettes. This is the Mini Biba palette, which is a beautiful, beautiful 5-pan palette. It looks like this. Again, I think this one would be quite easy to get through. I think this is actually one that I I am considering panning quite a high up. Like again, if I were to like pick my favorites that are like my top contenders, this one is definitely up there because I think this will be an easy panda palette. I think I could get through it quite easily, and it would be more of a low-key panda palette, which would be great. So this one has, of course, 4 mattes, which would be the main problem, I think. But again, I am actually going to do a project next year focusing on my singles. So this one would be really, really good in that sense because I could incorporate my indie singles with this palette. So this is definitely one that I have grown more and more fond of the idea to pan the longer I thought about it. Let me know if you want to see me pan this one, or if you think it's too small for like a full-on panda palette. Yeah, let me know. I could also do this palette with like a handful of singles. I could even roll the singles into like other projects to finish, since this one is a smaller palette. So it would also give some more freedom that way. So yeah, let me know about this palette, but this is the next contender. And again, it's definitely one that's quite high up there. Not as high maybe as the Soft Glam palette, like continuing on, but it might even be in second place right now, if I think about it. Another palette that I definitely think I'll be able to get through in a year, and is also one that I think I would enjoy loads to pan, but the question is if I'm ready to pan it quite yet. And that is the Nude Lights Obsession from Huda Beauty. This is an absolutely stunning color story. It is one that I really, really enjoy. It is those kind of rosier tones again. Yeah, it's a beautiful one. It also doesn't go very deep, which would be very helpful for me. To be fair, even if I decided to continue panning Soft Glam, this one could be like a good companion palette. So I can pan both of those together and not do the singles, for example. That's another option, but I think that would again be quite a lot of eyeshadows, but it is an option if you want to see it. But yeah, this one has, how many mattes? It has 5 mattes and 4 shimmers, but the mattes again goes very light. The deepest matte in here is this one, which is more honestly like a mid-tone kind of matte, sorry. And the shimmers are really, really beautiful, and I think this one could be a nice everyday palette that isn't just like warm toned, which the Soft Glam has been this year. So it would give some variety, but it would also be a palette that I think I can incorporate every single day. So that is the next option. All right, we have 3 more palettes to go. The next one is another one that is a comeback from last year's selection, and that one is the Red Dragon palette from Odin's Eye. This is a palette that I really, really do like the idea of, and like the color story is definitely up my alley. Maybe not so much anymore as it used to be, because I'm not into these greens as much as I used to be, but it's still something that I do enjoy. And especially like I think the ones in here, I do really like these type of greens because they're very, very warm toned and not too deep. So like I'm talking about these 2 right here. You also have that really beautiful like multi-chrome. I don't know if I'll be able to show it on camera, but this one goes into like a green. I'm trying to show it there in the mirror. I think if you look at the top shimmer there in the mirror, you might be able to see that it goes into a green. But it's like a pink to green multi-chrome. So that would be fun to pan as well, even though it is a little bit deeper. But I love this palette. I do really like. I think I would have no problem finishing this shade, this shade, this shade, even this shade, I think, this shade, and maybe even this shade. The problem, I think, would be in like the deepest shades. So this one, this one, this one, and this one. So yeah, I don't know. Also, I don't know how big these pans are. It says 13 grams on the back, which means that this palette is actually bigger than the Soft Glam palette, which means that it would be quite a lot of eyeshadow to finish. But yeah, it would be fun to pan this one, and it's also like a relatively unused palette in my collection. I obviously have pan in 3 shades, but the rest of the pans in here are relatively untouched. So it would be fun to kind of start almost from scratch with a palette and see how far I can get with it in a year. So that is the next option. Let me know what you think of this one. The last 2 palettes I have are both in a similar kind of situation. These are both palettes that got to me because my friend decluttered them. And I have really enjoyed them, but they are still on the shopping block because I want to get to know them better and I want to use them more before I can make a decision about keeping them in my collection. So yes, I would consider panning these, but I'm also kind of like, I don't know if they're going to be around for too much longer. We'll see. They might be on the shopping block for like the end of the year declutter that I'm going to do, or it actually might happen in January. We'll see how it goes, but they might be on the shopping block for that. The first one out of those 2 is the Stoned Vibes palette, which is a really, really beautiful palette. This one has majority shimmers. It only has 4 mattes and 8 shimmers, so 12 shades altogether. And it is super, super stunning. These shimmers are very, very nice. I do like them, but the thing with these shimmers is that I have indie shimmers that are probably better than these, which is also why this one is on the shopping block. I don't think it's a bad palette by any means, and I do really like them, like the shades in here. But I just know that I have only so much time with all my eyeshadows before they go bad, and I would probably rather, for like all of these kind of sparkly formulas, reach for my indie shimmers rather than these, which is why I'm considering it. But I also feel like that's why I could pan it, because I do still love these type of shimmers, and I would probably prefer them than some, like a lot of other shimmers in other of these palettes that I mentioned. But yeah, I'm just a bit torn. I think I could probably get through this one as well relatively quickly, because I think I can go through the shimmer shades relatively quickly. The forced mattes are probably where I'm going to struggle the most with this palette. So yeah, we'll see. Let me know again your thoughts with this one. I'm definitely considering it, even though I don't know. I think it might hinder some of my progress in the kind of single shadow based project that I'm going to do. So we'll see. But that is the second to last option. And then the very final palette that I have to talk about is actually the one I'm wearing on my eyes today. It is one that is currently in my Big Fat Eyeshadow project, and that is the Dreamy palette from Nabla. So this is a really, really stunning palette. It's like a nice, again, everyday palette. Today I went a little bit smokier and tried to do something different with the palette today. But overall, especially if you remove like these deeper shades, these are very much like everyday shadows, and they're very, very kind of easy, I think, to incorporate. Maybe Senorita is a little bit too bright for that, but I think I like pinks, and I think that's a really nice shade too. So I do think this one could be a nice contender because of that, because of course it would be nice to reach for every single day. It has a mix of warm tones and cool tones as well, and a mix of shimmer and mattes. What talks against this palette is probably that the shimmers aren't like the most impactful shimmers. And also, I don't really like these kind of really deep shades, even though that's what I'm wearing on my eyes today. And I actually quite like how it turned out, even though it is a bit smoky for me for every day. For video and stuff, it's fine. But yeah, I don't know. I think this one is definitely one that I think I would have a good time with it, but it's probably not one of my top contenders. So let me know what you guys think, though. If you can convince me with any of these palettes, like, feel free to do so. Again, I'm obviously, you might have been able to tell I'm more set on certain palettes than others, or certain options than others. But I would love for you guys to try to convince me in the comments. Put your votes down below. Let me know what you want to, like, what you want me to see me pan. Because even though I'm the one using it, and yes, it needs to be a palette that I am willing to use for a full year, which all of these are, because otherwise I would not include them in this video. But you guys are still going to watch it for the year, so it needs to be something that you guys are going to enjoy as well. So let me know you guys' thoughts. But these are all of the options. Let me just read them out to you to sum up before we wrap up the video, so you can have a recap of what you can vote for. So the first option is to continue my Pana palette from 2024, the Soft Glam palette, and either like mix it with singles or use it on their own. Probably mixing it with singles would be the main option, so that is option number 1. Then we have Anastasia and Alvina. We have Anastasia and Reese. We have the Colourpop Going Coconuts. We have the Colourpop Sweet Talk, either on its own or kind of making a BYOP with my singles from Colourpop. We have the Natasha Denona Mini Biba palette, the Huda Beauty Nude Light Obsessions palette, the Odin's Eye Red Dragon palette, the Urban Decay Stone Vice palette, and lastly the Nabla Dreamy palette. So again, let me know your thoughts and comments down below, and leave your votes so I can count them all up, and yeah, again, just hearing your arguments, so I can tally all of the votes up and also just hear other points of view. So that's going to be it for today. I hope you guys are having an amazing day wherever you are, and I'll catch you in my next one. Bye guys.